Hi, I'm Kate Meyer, and today I'll be talking about fears and phobias. Snakes, airplanes, and needles, oh my. For some of you, these words may have caused you to cringe, feel uncomfortable, or even get anxiety. Almost every person in the United States has an irrational fear or two. They can be anything from a mouse to a dentist appointment. For many people, these fears could be minimal, but to others, it could cause tremendous anxiety and interfere with their daily lives. When a fear becomes this severe, it is called a phobia. According to WebMD, a phobia is an intense fear of something that is excessive and unreasonable. With an incredible amount of fears and phobias in today's society, it is no surprise that people have a fear of even the silliest things. For example, I personally have a fear of collarbones. Very silly, I know. Since being involved in many activities growing up and being a part of different teams such as soccer, dance, golf, cheer, and show choir, I've become friends with many different walks of life and have discovered many different phobias that I've never even heard of. My experience with these people has intensified my interest in discovering more information on phobias. By the end of this speech, I hope that you have a better knowledge of phobias and respect that many people have different phobias and that there are ways that they can be managed and cured. Firstly, I will spook you with the greatest fears and phobias in the United States. And then startle you by informing you of where fears and phobias come from. And lastly, shock you with how to overcome these phobias and anxieties. To begin, I will make your blood run cold with the greatest fears and phobias in the United States. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 6.3 million Americans have a diagnosed phobia. So, what are these fears that haunt people in the United States? The greatest fear in the United States is called glossophobia, or the fear of public speaking. Talking in public or in a room full of people is out of the equation for 74% of Americans. For these people, it is painful to be in front of people and in front of a large crowd of strangers. It can send their heartbeat to jump out of their chest and cause sweaty palms and a churning stomach. Another horrifying and common fear in the United States is called necrophobia, or the fear of dying or death. With 68% of people in the United States being in this morbid state of mind, these people have the abnormal fear of one's own death and the process of his or her death. Terrified of creepy crawlers and slithering serpents? Then you may have arachnophobia. This phobia affects 30.5% of people and tends to affect women more than men. Those who suffer may undergo shortness of breath when they see a spider or even just a spider web. According to these people, there are spiders in every single room they walk into. With public speaking, death, and our crawling friends being a few of the greatest fears in the United States, other phobias such as scotophobia, the fear of darkness, acrophobia, the fear of heights, and aerophobia, the fear of airplanes, are a few more phobias that suppress and worry Americans. Now that we are familiar with some eerie and popular phobias in the United States, we will startle you with where these fears and phobias came from. So where do they come from? According to psychologist Kendra Cherry, there are a number of explanations for why phobias develop, and that includes evolutionary and behavioral theories. All human fears are learned, with the exception of falling and loud noises. Most psychologists believe that phobias are learned very early on in life. This occurs during classical conditioning when you're younger and the observational learning process. Classical conditioning is essential in learning through association. If a young child has a traumatizing experience with bees in the swimming pool, the child may later develop a fear of water instead of bees. Um, Another way a phobia can initiate is through observational learning or modeling. And that, for example, like if a child sees his mother becoming frantic or anxious because of a spider, that child later on in life may also be afraid of spiders. So, although many phobias are a learned trait, a person can develop a phobia anytime throughout their life and about anything in the world. Um, Now that we have discussed why we have phobias and whether they're severe or just silly little fears, let me shock you with the ways to overcome them. So, if you have a phobia and it doesn't impact your daily life, it is most likely nothing to be concerned about, um, such as my silly collarbone phobia. um, it's nothing I lose sleep over, so that's good. But if you are in terror and you avoid this object, activity, or situation, then you should probably seek some help so that you can start enjoying life. If you recognize that this phobia is excessive, unreasonable, and causes fear and panic, and you find yourself avoiding certain situations on behalf of the phobia, then um, you should seek help and a thing called self-help or therapy. And self-help is an excellent start. It starts with you, and the more you do for yourself, the more in control you will feel of your fear. When it comes to phobias, facing your fears is number one on the list. Naturally, you want to avoid the fear because it makes you feel better for a short term time, but it never allows you the chance to cope with your fear and to face your fear. Um, so, in order to take control of your fears, you should face them. According to Help Guide for Phobias and Fears, the most effective way to overcome this suppression in your life is to gradually expose yourself to it. So, in a safe and controlled manner. And during this exposure process, you will learn to ride out the anxiety and until it inevitably moves out of your life and the phobia will lose its control and its power. Sometimes facing your fears is easier said than done, of course. When it comes to this situation and you don't want to live with anxiety and fear, therapy comes to the rescue. Treatments such as cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy are beneficial to you. These types of therapies can teach you how to monitor your anxiety levels, and it puts an end to a worrisome state of mind, and it'll allow you to conquer your fears in the long run. According to Jean Siegel, whom has a PhD in psychology, she says that when it comes to treating phobia disorders, therapy is the most effective way. And she says so because it helps you relax, number one, have a new outlook on the situation in less frightening ways, and to develop a better way to cope with your fears and phobias and the things that scare you in life. Therapy gives you the tools you need to make you superior to your fear and to things such as snakes and needles and airplanes, oh my. So yeah, although not every person has a phobia or even a minor fear like collarbones, it can be a life-altering experience overcoming the smallest fears. So whether you have a phobia or fear or not, you can now take this information and contemplate whether you need to overcome a fear or need to overcome an avoidance of some sort. And you can do so because they could be things that are holding you back from living life. And with so many irrational fears in our world today, it is important to know which ones are minor and which ones are severe and which ones that you should be concerned about. Understanding your phobia is the first step to overcoming one. It is essential to know that phobias and fears are common, and one doesn't make you crazy. But knowing that phobias are treatable can lead you to a better, healthier life and a more carefree lifestyle. Um, and you can get there no matter how out of control your phobia feels to you. Um, a wise person once said, "The best way to hold on to a phobia is to stay away from the things that make you scared."